This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Psst, healthcare pros, word's out, and it's too good to keep quiet. Look, LinkedIn is revolutionizing job hunting, making it possible to search by specialty, shift preference, and salary. Endless scrolling is out. Whether it's a mental health therapist or dental hygienist, finding the perfect role is faster and easier than ever. Head to linkedin.com/healthcare and start your search today.
Tonight on NBC, Jimmy Fallon and Bozoma St. John host the highly anticipated new competition show.
I hired 10 creatives from all walks of life. They will be battling it out to see who can impress the world's biggest brands.
This is a huge opportunity.
This is the battle for the next big idea.
This is not play.
We're spending millions of dollars.
I'm so excited to embark on this adventure with all of you.
May the best idea win!
On Brand with Jimmy Fallon, series premiere tonight on NBC.
HR tech, work tech, and investment are transforming the future of work. Are you in the know? Welcome to the Work Tech Podcast. Join host George Larocque for expert insights on the trends, M&A activity, and strategies shaping the workplace. Brought to you by OneWorkTech.com and the Work Defined Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Work Tech. It's me, George Larocque, and we've got another conversation that I'm excited about. I've really been looking forward to this one. I met Toby Egbuna, the CEO and co-founder of Chezie, at this year's HR Tech Conference Investor Summit, and he joined a panel discussion for early stage founders, and I invited him to that panel because of the insights that he's shared about funding and growing Chezie. He's really defined his own path to sustainable growth, and I think his experience and message is valuable for any early stage founder or anybody thinking about becoming an early stage founder. Welcome, Toby.
Yeah, thanks for having me, George. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, before we dig into that path and that whole story, I'd love for you to introduce yourself a little bit and Chezie. And we'll talk about Chezie a little bit before we, because I'll take all the time on going down that path.
For sure. Sounds good. Yeah. So as George mentioned, I'm the founder of a company called Chezie. We help companies build more impactful employee resource groups. So I actually founded the company with my younger sister, Dumebi. She and I are first generation Nigerian immigrants. We are of the Igbo tribe. So Chezie is the Igbo word for reflect. So we work with companies like Airbnb, DocuSign, the NBA, Warner Music Group, a handful of others, to help them build more impactful and sustainable employee resource groups. So, I've been doing the company for about 3 years and based here in Atlanta, Georgia.
Cool. I was going to ask you about the name. That's cool. That's a cool meaning. That's always interesting to me, how folks come up with a name and what the meaning is. That's very literal meaning. That's great.
Yeah.
So ERG platforms are on like the edge of my HR tech, work tech space that I focus on, and it'd be great if you could help everyone understand like what are the core components of a platform that for ERG and like the value that the platform delivers to your customer.
Yeah. So if you've ever been a part of employee resource group at a company, or if you haven't, an employee resource group is kind of like an internal community that a company has generally for a specific demographic group. So I always use an example of like a women at Google or a Black at Meta, something like that. There's a lot of operations that go on when you have an ERG. You have to schedule events. You generally have to like report up to the higher ups of the company to see how the progress of the ERG is going. You need to manage budgets. You need to send comms out, and a lot of times companies are using 6 or 7 different systems to handle all of that. Chezie just puts all of that in one place. So you can, there's member management, there's budget management, there is communications and event scheduling, there's reporting. We just launched a new goals feature. So it's kind of centralizing all the things that employee resource groups need in one spot.
Okay. And you mentioned a couple of brands that we would all identify with there, but what's your ICP, and who's the buyer? Like what's the customer universe?
The ICP question is interesting because we've kind of been experimenting and trying to figure that out now. I would say our ICP is a company with at least 5,000 employees, a pretty large employee resource group community and a program going. So generally about minimum 25% of the company needs to be in an employee resource group. We just found like the biggest signal was that like the company is continuing to invest in its ERG program. You might have, I spoke to a company yesterday with 30,000 people, but that, the budget for each ERG was like $3,000, $5,000, right? If that's your company, you're probably not necessarily investing in them in the way that makes sense for you to actually go ahead and get a dedicated platform for them. So that's how I would think about the ICP. The second half of your question was what, George?
The buyer, like who's making the decision around this platform or I guess a platform in the programs.
Yeah, most typically it's a diversity and inclusion office. Sometimes we work with a people experience team. Sometimes we work straight with a CPO who's been tasked with launching or with onboarding an employee resource group. But most usually it's the DEI team.
Yeah. So, while this is on the edges of my space, it's, having looked at your site and talked to you a little bit, I noticed a lot about like the benefits of ERG, sort of empowering those groups, but also I saw a lot of like messaging targeting, analytics and even ROI, and it, I think where you're on the edge of this space, it's in that DEI and experiences where we start to, overlap. And I'm curious, do your customers come to you looking for those analytics and that ROI, or are you helping them discover the analytics and ROI? Because in the experience and culture space, it's probably more the latter that I've seen increasing over the last couple of years. But I found that really interesting about your message.
Yeah, I think most of our customers, because ERGs are owned by DEI teams, and DEI teams are generally, there's just always kind of like some eyes on them. Like, what are y'all really doing? They're generally always trying to figure out a way to more clearly demonstrate the impact of the groups. So the number one request that we get, number one or two that we always get from customers is like, we need data. We need to know the number of members. We need to know how many people are attending our events. We need to know like feedback, things like that. And that's why like data, the reporting is the very first thing that you see when you open Chezie up. Now we're trying to figure out how we help them take that data and actually like gather insights from it, like figuring like to suggest like, these are the actual best types of events that you can do. Here's the best time and date for you to actually schedule an event based on the attendance from the previously held events that you've had, things like that. But I would definitely say that they come to us looking for the data so they can prove the impact of the work they're doing.
Okay. And now you've been growing. How based on the conversations we've had, like how's business in the market overall? How are you feeling about Chezie right now?
It's interesting, man. I think it's every day I check our pipeline and there's like new customers in there, but at the same time, it's never surprising when I get a message in our inbox that like one of our champions got laid off, or a deal got to the very end and it got killed. It just seems like, I think ERG and DEI work broadly is understood as important, but not urgent. Right. And if you're starting a startup, like for us, the people that we've been most successful with are the people that find it urgent. Right. And if you're starting a startup, you always want to find the people with an urgent problem, not a like, this kind of sucks, but I can deal with the problem. Like, if I got to keep doing this, I'm gonna quit. Those are the kind of customers that you need. And I think just based on where DEI sits within an organization, most CEOs, and I kind of get it. Like if I'm a CEO and, I'm thinking about the next 3, 6, 12 months.
I want to take a break real quick just to let you know about a new show we've just added to the network. Up Next at Work, hosted by Gene and Kate Akil of the Devon Group. Fantastic show. If you're looking for something that pushes the norm, pushes the boundaries, has some really spirited conversations, Google Up Next at Work, Gene and Kate Akil from the Devon Group.
if we do or do not have a successful URG program, that's probably not necessarily going to impact that next 3 to 6 12 months. That's probably going to impact 10 years, 5 years, something like that. But I'm trying to figure out how we hit our numbers so our stock doesn't drop. And, a lot of times that means ERGs kind of just get like put on the back burner.
Right. But there's no silver lining in any of this, like what's causing that sentiment in the market right now, right?
Yeah.
Like, but I think the way you put that, you're as a startup founder, you're looking for folks where they understand they have a problem to solve or an opportunity to seize. So in like I've been saying about the world lately, it's like, well, now I kind of understand like who's who and what's what, or I'm looking at things differently. And in a similar way, it's like the market's been polarized for you more distinctly. And again, that's not a silver lining, but I hadn't thought of it that way. Your pipeline is going to be filled with folks who are committed, increasingly so in this climate.
It's a good way to think about it. Correct. And pipeline, so it might not be quite as big of a pipeline as we would like, but the people that we do have are committed, because otherwise, you're usually not really having the conversation. You're not entertaining the conversation.
Right. No. Well, well, thank you for that. And I think that those analytics and that data, I mean, that's a challenge across if I put you in the HR spectrum, I know that CHRO is probably involved in decisions as well, like understanding how to make an internal business case. I mean, I'm still helping so many people understand that in every category that I do focus on. So I think you're smart to be focused there. But all right, so I really loved I love your content on LinkedIn. Everybody should go find you on LinkedIn. Every founder should be following your stuff. You've got an incredible amount of content about going to market and about the realities of going to market, as well as fundraising, which, I track all the growth capital coming into the space and help a lot of early stage founders, companies at all stages, but especially at early stage, it's, the market's been challenging for a few years now. And I think your insights are just super timely for a lot of the founders that I'm talking to. So I mentioned you carved out a path for yourself for Chezie. Let's make sure everybody, like the traditional path, to talk about the traditional path and what that really entails, and the challenges that are inherent there.
Yeah, I think it's weird because there are like 99.9% of companies that exist, and then there are startups, right? So for the 99.9%, the traditional path is like you self-fund, you get some money from friends and family, you take out a loan, and like nothing matters until you get to profitability.
Right.
And then you can try to figure out what's there. But for startups, though, it's raise $3 million or raise some venture, like have an idea, go find some people to give you some money that they raise from pension funds and from big banks and whatever. Let's say they give you $1 million. Then you basically have 12 months to figure out if that idea is worth it, if that idea has legs. And then you can go back to those investors and those investors' friends and ask for $5 million because you validated that you have an idea that's worth something. And then you have $5 million to basically you have $5 million in maybe like 2 years to get to like $1 million in revenue, at which point you're definitely not profitable.
Right.
But then you've gotten the rights to raise like $15 million to get to maybe like 3 to 5 million. Like it's you say it out loud and it's absurd. And I think that the way that like venture capital has, I think, really broken the way that people build tech companies now, especially in the last like 5-10 years. And it's not like venture capital's fault, because for certain companies it's the right move, right? Like for Uber is always the example that people give, but like Uber like literally doesn't work unless there's tons of money in it, because you have to subsidize the rides, you have to get adoption before it's worth it, et cetera. But like for 99% of startup ideas, Chezie included, you need some money to start for sure, but you'd be better off treating your company as a small business and taking some money, getting to profitability, and trying to keep some kind of quick growth going. Because I think that's one of the benefits of startups. Like, you have lean margins, you can distribute entirely digitally, so you don't have to worry about shipping or brick and mortar or anything like that. You can still achieve maybe not like this kind of growth, but like this growth, right? Where you're like maybe doubling every year. That's a damn good, I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on here. Sorry. That's a pretty good,
good.
small business to think about. So yeah, I don't know. It's the way that funding works specifically for startups is odd to me. And that I think the biggest thing is just that so many founders go after venture capital kind of thinking that it's like the only thing out there. And that's a whole nother, like, we can talk a little bit more about that, because in some cases it kind of is, but there's just not enough funding options out there for startup founders, and they end up going after VC when they don't necessarily need to, and they shouldn't.
Right. Well, what's interesting, as you're talking, I was thinking, there's a group of founders who, they've done this once before, twice before, whatever number of times. And generally, after their first time, it's definitely that model that you talked about. The second time, though, they tend to be more conservative in the sense that they might have a little bit more of their own money to put into it, but at the same time, if they were successful the first time, but they all it's not bootstrapping, it's more intentional, deliberate, like, growth and planning before they go out and get better terms, if that's the path that they're on. So it resonates, and it's interesting because that's one of the big lessons you learn your first time out is the whole delusion game, and how you're going to be you're giving away too much. Yeah.
It's odd. I think and I understand, man. Like, there's something special about saying that you're VC backed. It's cool. Like, like, literally is. I'm saying that as someone that is VC backed. It's great to be able to say. And I think as a first time founder, you kind of fall in love with the idea of being a founder. And then I imagine, right, as a second time founder, you actually fall in love with being a founder and, like, running a company, and like the stuff that comes from it is great, but, like, you just love the business aspects of it. If you go into it a second time, I'll say. And at that point, like, if you need VC, you'll take it. But if you don't, and you can still get to whatever outcome you decided to, right? Like, you figured out what you want to be when you grow up, as we were talking about before, then you don't. Then you just build the company you want to build. So yeah, it's I wish more people understood that, myself included. I wish more people understood that the first time they started a company.
Yeah. So so that sounds like, I was one of the questions I had for you is like
when your investors, customers, and workers demand more from your business, make it happen with SAP. The AI-powered capabilities of SAP can help you streamline costs, connect with new suppliers, and manage payroll, even when your business is being pulled in different directions. To deliver a quality product at a fair price while paying your people what they're worth too, so your business can stay unfazed. Learn more at sap.com/uncertainty.
For a limited time at McDonald's, get a Big Mac Extra Value Meal for $8. That means 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, and medium fries, and a drink. We may need to change that jingle.
Prices and participation may vary.
There's a first-time founder starting out, and how would you advise them to think about this path and maybe the alternative sources of funding that are available? Like, how would you, I know I saw a post that you did about one and done, and that really struck it. That stood out to me. How would you advise someone to be thinking about, getting their product to market, getting out to market, those motions?
I would advise you, the number one goal, I think, is to, like, raise equity, fundraise as little as possible, right? So whatever you need to do to fund your company in the early days, which includes, like, keeping your day job, loans if you can get decent terms, grants, maybe even friends and family. That's like, you're probably giving up equity for that, but maybe not too much. Whatever you're going to do to fund your idea to the point where you're like you can see the point of profitability, right? Like you have a good sense of like how much time it's going to take, what inputs you need to put out, like what your team needs to look like. And then at that point, you can actually understand, like, now that I can see that point of profitability, do I need money to get there? If I do, okay, I'm going to raise that exact amount of money, maybe like a 20% buffer. If I don't, then I'm not going to raise. I'm just going to get there. For us, our funding journey looks like we put in 20K of our own money, and then we won a 50K grant from NPR. Like, we've been very fortunate with grant funding. We've received close to 400K in grant funding. So we won a 50K grant from NPR. That was actually the push that for me to go full time on it and quit my day job. And then we received 125K from Amazon, another 100K from Google. Those are like back to back. And then maybe it's 275K in grants, not 375. But anyway, we've received a lot. And that was enough for us to like 100% validate that like there was a group of people out there willing to pay for what we were selling. And then we went out to fundraise because we at least thought, this is another thing, but like when you're, if you're thinking about venture capital, you start to think about what venture capitalists are going to want to see, whether or not you're actually going to be able to raise or not. So in our head, because we had built our product using a platform called using no code, like which wasn't the most traditional way to do things, I went into our second year thinking like we have to get off of no code. Otherwise, we can't be that VC-backed company. And we spent, I can't even tell you, George, like hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to get off of no code. And we ended up just like shutting it down. And we're fine. Our company is just like, it's operating great and we're profitable and we're still growing. And I'm just like, gosh, we could have so much more money in this bank account if I hadn't been going down this VC route. So anyway, to answer your question, in terms of for a founder thinking about funding their company, fund with as little as possible, work your day job as long as you can. And then you mentioned the one and done round of funding. I think if you do need to raise funding, because it's very possible, like you need to pay yourself. Like I'm a firm believer in that. You need to pay yourself. You need probably an initial team. But like, if you figure it out again, like that it's going to take you 500K to get to that point of profitability that we talked about before, raise that 500K, get to profitability, and then you can be done. You can just be like, you can just love the process and be a founder that's like building a company that's going from, 1 to 5 to $10 million $10 million a year in revenue. You don't need VC. And I think like 95% of founders would be very happy with that outcome.
Yeah. There are a few things you said that are really insightful there. And I like that one of the things, you're rather than focusing on the fundraise, focus on the product, the customer, building this business. One of the things I saw you online, I think it was just this morning, an exchange about somebody else. Their point was founders end up lying to investors, like telling lies that they know. I don't know if that's how I would phrase it. But about the size of the market or about the opportunity or whatnot, in order to get that funding, and it creates this vicious cycle that you outlined. Always needing to raise more, and in an interesting way that by the focus that you're talking about, that really and ultimately puts you in a much stronger position if you do go to raise.
Exactly.
That's it. So do you view it all as I guess it's control, right? It gives you keeping your options open, but it's like, is it a path to? Is this approach early on what leads you to back to that VC path in a stronger position, or avoidance of that VC path? I'm not anti-VC.
Yeah, great question. I'm not anti-VC either. I think that what you want to do in the early stages is like keep your options open, right? So like because I think sometimes like you might be starting something that you don't even think is that big, and then some stuff happens and then boom, like you're like, whoa, this could be huge. Usually it's the other way around. You think it's huge and it's like way smaller, but like sometimes you're just starting something and it like ends up being really big. And in that case, if you've like kind of followed this path and just made your own way, bootstrap to a couple million in revenue, you actually see a way that y'all can get to 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, then that VC door is open. And that VC, and you're going to be, because what you just said about like founders, lying to their investors, it's founders are salespeople. That's actually something else that post says. Like they've sold their investors on this big vision, right? And if you're a founder that's managed to get to like 2 to 3 million a year in revenue, if you haven't gotten funding, then like to that investor, you look like this unicorn yourself, because it's almost like this person was able to do this with no resources. Imagine what would happen if we just flooded him with like the money that we have, plus our network, plus our line of advisors, plus whatever tools we built internally. Imagine what he or she could do. And that's a way to sell your investor. That's like literally what we did. We bootstrapped to like 100K in revenue. I'm like, imagine what we could do if we actually had some money in our bank account. So, yeah, it's exactly, it's what you said. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are some important details because I mean, I've had a couple of conversations with you now, and you've got a real command over the numbers in your business. Is it advisors that helped you get there, or is it an accountant? Is it how do your investors who bring those resources, or what would you tell founders to think about some people talk about unit economics, some it's just getting to more of a financial perspective around getting to EBITDA. What's your take on that?
So I think like when you're in early stage, and technically Chezie still is, just based on like where we are from a revenue standpoint, you don't need like a super tight grasp on your numbers, or your unit economics. You don't need anything like that. You need to understand like your balance sheet, right? Your income statement, stuff like that. But if it's you benefit from not having the financial history, to where all you need to pitch about is the vision, right? With that being said, I do think that there's some things that definitely benefit founders to be knowledgeable about. Like if you can give a specific reason or your math behind why you think your market is $2.1 billion instead of 1.5, like you can specifically tell them based on the number of customers that you think are out there, like that's going to earn you some points. If you can show like very detailed financial projections and just explain like how you actually think you'll get here, it's all projections, it's all BS. But if you can explain your thinking behind that, it's going to help you out a lot. But like I think in the early days, you really benefit from like not having clearly defined unit economics, because you don't have the history. I think once you get later, right? Once you get to $1 million, $2 million, you're trying to raise a bigger round, then you're going to need to be able to prove that this is you understand that stuff. But in the early days, which is where we are, that's all all the experience that I have, you don't need that. Yeah.
So you're in an interesting point at Chezie. Things are going well. You're growing. What's next? Like how are you looking forward?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think we're coming up on this point, I think, at Chezie, where it's pretty clear that this isn't, a 10, 20, $30 million a year business, right? I think we talked about this before this call as well. I think we are a solid multi-million-dollar a year company. Maybe we can expand into different kind of tangential things that companies need, like general employee experience software or mentorship or something like that. So now I'm just trying to figure out how we optimize for that, and how I can optimize my own time. Because like a good amount of my time now is, obviously I still spend a good amount working on Chezie, but now I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I help other founders? I'm just really passionate about helping other founders and aspiring founders launch and start their things. I think entrepreneurship has given me so much. It's been like a fantastic, this happened at your conference, George, when I was at the, I don't know if you were there, the Vizier happy hour at it was like the penthouse.
Hi there, I'm Peter Zollman. I'm a co-host of the Inside Job Boards and Recruitment Marketplaces podcast.
And I'm Stephen Rothberg, and I guess that makes me the other co-host.
Every other week, we're joined by guests from the world's leading job sites.
Together, we analyze news about general, niche, and aggregator job board and recruitment marketplaces sites.
Make sure you sign up and subscribe today.
It was like the rooftop bar in the Mandalay Bay Hotel. I don't even know what it's called. But I was just like, I had this like crazy view of Vegas, and I'm just like, this is absurd. that I had this like $30 drink in my hand that I didn't pay for. You know what I mean? I flew to Vegas and I'm staying in this hotel on on this company that I started's dime. You know, like being a founder has given me so much, and I think so many people would benefit from kind of taking the leap or starting their own thing, even if it doesn't like get them to that necessarily to that point. And that's why a lot of times why I post on LinkedIn is just like, I think there's a lot of misunderstandings. There's a lot of things that people don't know. There's a lot of like, okay, well, if I can't be a $100 million company, what's the point? And the truth is, again, 99.9% of companies out there are not that, and they're doing just fine. There's millions of small businesses out there. Like if you consider your company a small business, you're probably better off.
Yep. Yeah, that's really good advice, a good perspective. I think that's Skyfall.
Skyfall's the name of the bar. Okay.
Yeah.
It's very high up. It's a dope bar. Dope bar for sure.
Yeah. I missed that one, but I was at another one the last night, and it is a great view up there. Yeah. So, what is the best way for everybody to tap into, your insights? And I mean, of course, learn more about Chezie as well. But, is it LinkedIn? Is that where you put most of your stuff?
Yeah. So you can learn more about Chezie by going to chezie.co. If you have ERGs, you run ERGs, we'd love to give you a demo and see how we can help. In terms of me personally, yes, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's at Toby Egbuna. You'll see my name, I guess, in the show notes. And then I also have a newsletter that I've restarted recently in the last month or so. It's called Equity Shift. The name comes from the idea of, kind of shifting equity and ownership and control over the startups that I think underrepresented founders and founders generally want to create away from the media and whatever, like the ways that people push them to run them towards the ways that they want to run them themselves. So I've been writing about funding and like this kind of counter startup culture that I feel like I'm part of. And my most recent one was about loans. So, I'm publishing stuff there every Wednesday. So you can subscribe to the newsletter.
Cool. That's great. Well, this is great. I know we're at time, and I really appreciate your time. I know you've got a lot on your plate, and I know a lot of founders are going to appreciate this conversation, and hopefully start following you. And I'm a big fan of what you do, so I wish you the best of luck. And I'd love to check in down the line and see how things are going a few months from now.
Absolutely. Yeah, happy to help, George. And I appreciate you having me on.
All right. Well, Toby, thanks again, and thanks to everybody who you're watching or listening. And until next time.
See y'all.
Thanks for tuning in to the WorkTech Podcast. Visit us at oneworktech.com and find out why WorkTech is considered the most trusted source of market intelligence and strategic advice for WorkTech. Subscribe to the WorkTech YouTube channel for video episodes and exclusive content. And be sure to check out the entire Work Defined podcast network at WRKDefined.com for more podcasts on the world of work.